Guys, so I am going to make another demo going over some basic tools that will be helpful when designing your logo, mostly drawing tools mixed with the image trace, and then we will also go over how to export out the different file types that I'm requiring of you with this project. So those will be useful skills for you. So if we go ahead and download the basic logo tools demo AI file out of Brightspace, it will be in our downloads folder, so we can just double click on that AI file to get it opened up in Illustrator. Just make sure you're in Window, Workspace, Essentials Classic, so that you have, and make sure your Properties panel is open, just so that your workspace matches mine. If you need to expand the toolbar, you can do that with this little arrow here. So make sure you're there. But it should look like this. So we're going to start with artboard number 1. There's actually 3 different artboards here. But we'll start with artboard number 1, and we'll just click on that to make that the active artboard, and then we can zoom. That didn't really work. We can always just use the space bar to kind of bring us to artboard number 1. We want to zoom in a little bit, or Command plus on your keyboard, Control plus on a Windows. So let's start off with the brush tool, which is right here, paintbrush tool. Over here in the properties panel, we can see the tool options. We can keep selected. That's a good thing to have checked under the paintbrush tool options. I went here to get that. We could make it really smooth. We could make it really accurate, which makes it less smooth, usually a rougher look. But actually, let's make it about right here. So go ahead and set the fidelity to there. Make sure you check keep selected. We can keep this at the default of 3 pixels. Go ahead and push OK. Let's make the fill color of this brush non-existent. Let's just go to none. And we want the stroke color is black is totally fine. We can leave the stroke at 1 point, but if you want to make it a thicker stroke, this is where you would change that. You can change the color of the stroke, which is actually the brush itself, the lines that the brush makes. And then we can change our brush options here too. There's some preloaded brushes here. We could actually go, there's not a ton in here, but we can go ahead and click on this charcoal feather brush. And with this brush, we will actually add, you'll see the asterisk, and the asterisk next to the paintbrush icon is an indication that you're going to make a new path. So let's just add some hair to this guy. So this is kind of how we can use the brush tool. This is just a basic tutorial on the brush. There's a lot more to the brush than just doing this kind of thing, but I don't know, just have fun with it. Add some hair. It can be long, it can be short, it can be spiky, but just use the charcoal brush. And also, if you want to try to find different brushes, there actually is a preloaded library of brushes that you can go through and look. I'm not going to go through those right now, but this is kind of a fun thing. And you can edit these brushes later on. They are at paths, so I mean, if we wanted to change the color on these, you could select these with the white arrow tool or the black arrow tool, I'm sure, and you can change the color here, or you could just double click here on the stroke color over here in the tools panel and change the color. Maybe I want red, so go ahead and change the color on those. And if you want to group them together too, sometimes that works well. We can bring them all together and push group over here, or Command G or Control G in a Windows keyboard. So that's kind of the basics of the brushes. And then we can go ahead and I want to show you the pencil tool. So the pencil tool is located under the sharper tool. So you'll have to find the sharper tool. It kind of looks like a circle with a pen next to it. But the pencil tool is the second one down. If you click and hold down on the sharper, you'll find the pencil tool. So if we double click on the pencil tool, we can get to the pencil tool options. You can also get it the same place we got it over here in the properties panel with the paintbrush tool. But so it's going to look somewhat like this. The keep selected is a good one to keep on. We want to make it all the way smooth as well. And this should be checked off. So close paths when the ends are within 15 pixels of each other. That means it'll automatically close any end paths and combine them if they're within 15 pixels of each other, which, you know, you might want that, you might not. I'm actually going to uncheck that, and then edit selected paths within 6 pixels. So that means that this will join paths together that are within 6 pixels of each other. So we can actually leave that checked for now, and I can show you what the difference is. So if we push OK, we'll leave edit selected paths checked. We'll leave it at 6. If yours isn't at 6, go ahead and put it at 6. Push OK. We're on the pencil tool right now. So let's see about making a collar on this. And then we want to make a separate line because this person has, let's say, a button-up shirt on. So if we have that edit paths within checked in the tool options, you'll see that it actually, within 6 pixels of each other, it'll combine your paths. And maybe you don't want it to. Maybe you do, but maybe you don't. So in this case, we don't want that to be happening. So we need to double click, you know, let's do Command Z. Double click on our pencil tool and let's uncheck that, edit selected paths, push OK, and then let's try drawing that again. And actually if you push shift down, Command Z, so pushing shift, you can see that minus sign next to it almost. It's a little bit longer than a minus sign, but if you push shift, that means you get a perfectly straight line, and hold shift down and then let up on the pencil, let up on shift, you get a perfectly straight line. And if now we have 2 separate paths that didn't automatically join together. If we want them to be grouped, we can group them, you know, so that they're one chunk. So when we go to move them, they're one chunk. But let's say that's the shirt that we wanted to add with the pencil tool. Very smooth lines. If we want to make it a little less smooth, we can edit that by, let's go ahead and double click here and make the fidelity way down and just push OK. I just want to show you what this is like. We'll add in a couple of feet. They don't have to be amazing. Just like that. So one thing I noticed with this is we don't have closed paths here. But if we delete this one, double click, and let's do the closed paths when ends are within 15 pixels. And let's try again on this, like making a, you know, now we can see it actually closed the path for us and made a complete circle that's completely closed. So that's the difference there. So go ahead and make that difference so that your second shoe is actually closed. So this one doesn't have to be, as you can see, that one didn't close up, but that's the difference with some of those options that you might want to, you know, work with as you're moving throughout using the pencil tool anyway. Okay, so pen tool next. Pen tool is basically the third one down on the left here if you hover over it. This one is a little tricky for people. I even myself had a hard time with it, but we're going to actually do that on this artboard, the second artboard here, so we'll zoom in on this. So you can see the X will start here. If you want straight lines, you always push shift. Shift will make straight 45-degree angles, 90-degree angles either, or 100-degree, you know. So it makes pressing shift down the whole time on this section is a good idea, just because all of these are either 90-degree or 45-degree angle. So we just click, hold it out. You can see the blue part is basically kind of the preview. And if you're pushing shift down the whole time, you'll get perfectly straight lines. And let me Command Z. If I need to Command Z, I can bring myself back one step with the pen tool. If I push shift and I'm coming to the end here, where I will complete the path, that little circle next to the bullseye there is basically saying this is where your path will close. So the beginning of the path and the end of the path coming together, you get that circle, and that means we're going to close the shape for you. Click on that. So it's completely closed now. I can even swap the fill color and the stroke color. Go ahead and do that. So we're going to actually work on this shape next. You know, curves are a little bit more tricky to deal with the pen tool, but I feel that I have a pretty good way of showing you guys how to do this, hopefully. That isn't too confusing. I've known the pen tool for a long time, so I have a hard time remembering what it was like first coming to the pen tool and realizing how confusing it is. So we'll start here, because this is a straight line. It's probably the easy place to start. Push shift. You can see our preview blue line. Push shift here. And so if we go here, you can see we can try click and hold and drag out a handle. We can't quite get the shape that we want. So I find with curves that are this shape, we actually have to, so let's go ahead and push Command Z, we actually have to go to the apex of the curve, click and hold down, and then drag out our shape. And then click and hold down and drag out our shape. And I'm realizing that I left this as the fill color, so let's go ahead and swap that back into the stroke so that we have a nice red line here, or black. If you're on black, that's totally fine. If your stroke is black on your pen, just make sure that there's no fill color and that there is a stroke color on it. Okay, so so let's go ahead. So we can see our preview here. If I come over here, I can click and maybe I can drag out this curve really nicely. I'm holding down on my keyboard. I'm trying to drag that out. It's not perfect. It's close. But if you want to get it perfect, you might have to come to the apex of the curve, like I said before, and drag out. And then try from there. And this is pretty close, so we can click and hold that down. If you want to get it even closer, you can push Option and then click on that same anchor point and then start from scratch basically, and click and hold down and then drag out a perfect line that perfectly matches up with what's there. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, but just remember, you know, you can, like with this one, it really wants to curve. As you can see our preview, it really wants to curve the opposite direction of what I'm wanting it to go. So this is where I need to push Option or Alt on a Windows on my keyboard and click on that anchor point so I can start from scratch again. And I'm going to go to the apex of the curve and I'm going to drag out a line, and I'm going to come down here where the curve ends and adjust it a little bit further. So you can see my preview, once again, not great. The line wants to go the opposite direction, so that's where we push Option or Alt on a Windows and click. I'm going to go to where the curve ends and drag, hold down, drag out a handle. So this option, this little point is an anchor point, and these are the handles. Okay, so there's a handle here and a handle here. You don't always have two handles, sometimes you only have one. It just depends on the trajectory of the curve. So let's go Option, because I can tell it's going the wrong direction again, so Option, click on our anchor point, drag out a shape here. It's not perfect. I don't really like it. I don't think that matches. Command Z to start over. I'm going to actually go to the apex of the curve once again and just kind of try to get it to match a little bit closer. Sometimes I have to push Option again to really get the perfect curve. I'm not super happy with that, but that's close enough. Push Shift to get a straight line. Apex of the curve here. Drag that out. Option, click on that. And I just closed my path. You can see that little circle, and there we go. So, you know, there are some issues with this shape, but it's pretty close to where we want it to be. If we want to edit shapes after the fact, we totally can, especially with the white arrow tool. And then if you like click on the anchor points, you can see with the white arrow tool that you can edit these after the fact. So maybe I want to like kind of move these handles and kind of fix that curve a little bit. That is possible too. We can move on to the image trace here. That's the third piece here. So if we select this, you know, the image trace button is over here. You can experiment with some of these. There's different things you can do, but the sketch art actually for this particular one turns out okay. And then you have to, sorry about this, this isn't the best thing to image trace, but I'm not going to replace the image right now. And then the second step would be expand, pushing expand. If you want to get the image trace panel, you can click here and it will show you, you know, you can mess around with the threshold. Actually, if you turn it up to 203, it gets a lot better. And then you can change the paths, the corners, the noise. You can change those if you want, but mostly to change up the threshold to around 200. Make sure you click the preview button too when you're using the image trace panel. The panel just gives you more options. You can ignore the white as well so that you can create a trace that, well, let's see here. Oh yeah, so make sure that's checked to get rid of the white in the image if you don't want white. And then the last step of the process basically is to push expand in the properties panel or up here. There's a couple places to do it, and then you can see if you zoom in, you actually do have anchor points now. So this is a vector image now. There is a little bit of a extra little piece here that we don't want. So let's go ahead and use the delete anchor point underneath the pen tool and delete all those. And then once you're done, just save this file and submit it to Brightspace for a grade. And yeah, that's about it. That's what we wanted to go over in this demo. Okay, talk to you later.